As we think about going forward, what are some of the keys that you see for us as far as trying to help people understand that now, even in an ascending market, even as interest rates are going up, that now is really a good time to buy? Because that's really a question that, number one, I get asked, and I know all of my realtor partners ask, should I really wait until the prices come down or there's a crash, or is that a good time to buy now?
I think one of the worst things about the Great Recession in '08 is now everyone thinks there's always going to be a crash, you know, and there isn't there isn't always a crash on the downside of market cycles. That was such a horrific housing crash because of a fake credit bubble. You know, if you think about the last crash before 2008, it was the '80s, right?
Right.
It was the SNL loan scandal. Again, predicated by fraudulent credit, fraudulent finance, which is what we also had running up '05, '06, '07, causing that crash into '08. So the fraudulent, overextended credit cycle is what caused a crash. Normal cycles, because there have been other recessions. '03 was a recession. There was no crash in housing prices and appreciation. Um, 2001, right? You're going from 2001 to 2003.
Right.
The dot-com crash. Yeah, the stock market crashed. Did housing come down 50%? No. So, you have to think that when you go into these down cycles, it isn't always a horrific crash. And if someone's waiting for that, you're hoping. And what I would say, if you're thinking like that right now, you have to also measure the cost of waiting. That tool that you brought up, that you have access to our good friends, Barry Habib and Dan Habib over at MBS Highway, they can literally show you how much money you have left on the table by renting the last year, 2 years, 3 years, or how about the next 1, 2, or 3 years? You will literally you will pound your head into a wall if you do the math and look at how much you cost yourself and your family and your generational wealth if you do not own a property. If you look back, even through the worst recession we've had, which is the Great Recession, you count that market crash, okay? Before 2018, going back 30 years, still average appreciation was 5% a year. Then look what happened in the last 3 years, 15, 16% or more. So, if you wait, you sometimes miss those really big years. But if your plan is to live in a house, put some roots down, be there for a little bit of time, you'll outlast any market downtrend, even a market crash. And so if you're renting, you're paying a landlord 100% interest rate, you're making that person rich, and you look at Europe and you look at the widening gap of wealth. There's the haves with property and then the have-nots who do not own property. Even if you have to move out of town where it's a little bit more affordable, at least you're earning equity. And who knows, that little out of town part, if you can do it, if you can commute just a little bit longer, if you can maybe work from home, or you could flex hybrid work from home some days and then get back in the office some days, so you're not on the road all the time fighting traffic. That little town that's outside of town, it may be the next wherever you are now. It may be the next, wow, I stretched, I moved out of town, I sacrificed for 4 or 5 years of my job and I commuted. But that $350,000 property that was more affordable is now a $600,000 property. And you now own $300,000 in equity. You can't save $300,000. You can't save that kind of money. It's a forced savings plan. So again, you've got to talk about the starter home and some of the sacrifices it takes to have a long-term vision to own an appreciating asset over time. That is literally the difference between wealth and not having wealth. And it almost always starts with owning a property.
And I know how big a proponent you have always been, not only on owning homes and owning properties, but really helping people get into that. That's always been kind of close, near and dear to your heart, something that you really want. And your company, PRMG, I know that's something that they work very, very hard to try to make loans affordable, to open up credit to people maybe who have been had some financial issues or some credit issues. Your company is very consumer focused to try to help people out. And that's why they're one of the, they're one of our great lending partners in the broker channel.
Appreciate that.